Hey guys, tonight we're rewinding to a time when newspapers still mattered, and one cartoonist's audacity turned the funny pages into a war zone. Picture this, it's the early 2000s, and you're flipping through your morning paper when the Boondocks comic strip hits you like a brick wrapped in a punchline. Aaron McGruder, a then 26-year-old University of Maryland grad, didn't just sneak black radical politics onto the comics page, he stomped them into the syrup-stained breakfast tables of Middle America. I know, you would not have survived the letters to the editor. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Shout out to everyone watching from Tokyo to Toronto, drop your city and current time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The strip debuted in Star 1999 Star, the same year Britney Spears taught the world to hit puberty like a freight train. But while pop culture was busy with boy bands, McGruder was weaponizing satire. Mainstream history remembers the Boondocks as a TV show, but historians still argue whether the comic was more controversial. Imagine Peanuts if Charlie Brown quoted Malcolm X between missed football kicks. Here's your quirky tidbit. Early drafts of the strip had Huey carrying a literal brick in his backpack, a nod to Black Panther survival tactics. Editors nixed it, calling it too militant. McGruder compromised by making Huey's brick metaphorical, which, honestly, might have been sharper. By 2003, over 300 papers carried the strip, and at least 30 threatened to drop it. Why? Because McGruder did the unthinkable. He made white readers uncomfortable while making black readers cackle. The Washington Post once ran a headline asking, "Is the Boondocks racist against everyone?" That's like asking if a tornado discriminates based on zip codes. You're sitting in an animation studio in 2005, watching test footage of a cartoon that shouldn't exist. The unaired pilot of the Boondocks plays on a monitor, and somewhere in the room, a network executive is quietly hyperventilating into a paper bag. This wasn't just any cartoon, this was a grenade with the pin pulled, disguised as Saturday morning entertainment. The original pilot, now lost to time, though bootlegs still circulate, featured Huey Freeman dropping knowledge bombs so potent they made the censor's palms sweat. One scene had him explaining institutional racism to a group of white kids using nothing but a Monopoly board and a history textbook. Another showed Riley getting suspended for bringing a recording of Tupac's hit 'em up to show and tell. Historians still argue whether the pilot was too radical or not radical enough. What we do know: it contained the infamous Cracker Barrel scene that never made it to air. Picture Grandad trying to enjoy breakfast while Huey lectures the waitress about the restaurant chain's problematic history. The punchline? They still left her a tip. Here's your obscure fact: the pilot's animation was deliberately rougher than the final product. McGruder wanted it to feel like it was drawn by someone who was angry and running out of time. The result looked like if Peanuts characters had been designed during the Watts riots. When Sony Pictures Television first shopped the show around, 3 networks passed immediately. One executive famously asked, "Who is this even for?" A question that would haunt the series for its entire run. The answer, of course, was simple: for anyone brave enough to watch. The year is 2005, and somewhere in a nondescript FCC office, a beleaguered intern is opening the 387th complaint about the Boondocks' first season. You can practically see the steam rising from their coffee cup as they read yet another angry letter about that cartoon with the loud black children. What these viewers didn't realize: they were playing right into McGruder's hands. Adult Swim executives reportedly kept a controversy bingo card during Season 1's production. Square 1, Southern viewers offended by Confederate flag jokes. Square 2, Fox News segment calling us woke propaganda. Blackout space? Someone mails us their cut-up cable bill. By episode 3, they'd already won. The mainstream historical record focuses on the show's battles with censors, but here's what they miss: McGruder wanted those fights. When Network Notes suggested softening Huey's dialogue, the writer's room responded by making him more radical. In one unaired draft, Huey delivers a 90-second monologue about COINTELPRO while waiting for the school bus. The punchline? The bus never comes. Historians still argue whether the FCC complaints actually helped the show's ratings. What we know, after a particularly fiery segment on Hannity and Colmes, viewership spiked 22%. The most controversial episode? A Huey Freeman Christmas, where our young revolutionary explains Kwanzaa to a department store Santa. One station in Alabama preempted it with an Andy Griffith Show marathon. Here's your quirky tidbit. The production team kept a swear jar where writers had to donate $5 every time they made a joke too edgy for broadcast. By season's end, they'd collected enough to buy a used Honda Civic. They named it the Sensor Mobile and parked it prominently outside the studio. You're sitting in Huey Freeman's bedroom in 2006, where the walls are plastered with faded Black Panther posters and the complete works of Frantz Fanon. A 10-year-old revolutionary is schooling you on systemic oppression while tying his sneakers, and somehow you're the one who feels intellectually inadequate. This wasn't just cartoon rebellion. Huey's character was a direct descendant of real-life radical thinkers who scared the establishment just as much in their day. The mainstream historical record often glosses over how meticulously Magruder crafted Huey's ideological DNA. That monologue about prison industrial complex in episode 5? Almost verbatim from Angela Davis' 1998 lectures. Huey's distrust of electoral politics? Pure Stokely Carmichael. Even his signature red hoodie was a nod to the Young Lords Party's uniform. Historians still argue whether Huey was revolutionary inspiration or dangerous radicalization, but then again, they've always struggled with that distinction. Here's your obscure fact: Huey was originally going to be homeschooled. Early scripts had him teaching himself from Malcolm X's autobiography while Grandad argued with truancy officers. The writers scrapped it when research showed homeschooled kids were statistically less likely to overthrow the government. The genius of Huey's character was how he weaponized childhood innocence. When he deadpans the revolution will not be televised, but it will be merchandised while holding a Huey Freeman action figure, you realize this isn't just satire, it's generational warfare. The joke's on us though, that action figure actually exists now, available for $19.99 plus shipping. You're in the recording booth watching a 35-year-old rapper try to sound like an 8-year-old who thinks he's the second coming of Tupac. The year is 2005, and Regina King, yes, that Regina King, is directing her brother to sound more ignorantly adorable as they bring Riley Freeman to life. There's a beautiful irony here. Riley, the character who constantly mocks conscious rap, is being voiced by a conscious rapper who used to open for Public Enemy. Mainstream history remembers Riley as the show's comic relief, but historians still argue whether he was actually its most subversive element. While Huey represented black intellectualism, Riley embodied the contradictions of post-civil rights generation, obsessed with street credibility but living in the suburbs, quoting rap lyrics but misattributing them to the wrong artists. His infamous Crank That parody wasn't just comedy, it was anthropological study of how black culture gets appropriated and diluted. You're sitting on Robert Freeman's lumpy couch in 2006, listening to the man who survived Jim Crow somehow struggle to operate a universal remote. The scent of Bengay and regret hangs in the air as Grandad delivers another questionable life lesson, probably something about back in my day, while conveniently leaving out which days exactly he's referring to. This wasn't just comic relief. Robert Freeman represented every black elder who fought for civil rights only to watch their grandchildren meme about it on MySpace. Mainstream history paints Grandad as the stereotypical old head, but historians still argue whether he was actually the show's moral center, albeit a deeply flawed one. His constant battles with Huey mirrored real intergenerational conflicts in black communities, the civil rights generation who marched with Dr. King versus the hip-hop generation who quoted dead rappers like scripture. When Grandad mutters "these kids don't appreciate what we went through," half the black viewers over 50 nodded while the other half cringed at their own reflection. Here's your obscure fact: Robert's infamous "I like my women like I like my coffee" bit was almost cut for being too cliché. The writers kept it only after discovering actual sociological studies about how black men of his generation used humor to deflect trauma. The punchline? They later gave him an entire monologue about exactly which war injuries made him so ornery, delivered while icing his knees after trying to do the electric slide. The true tragedy of Grandad emerges when you realize he's the only character who genuinely believes in the American dream, the same dream that left him raising 2 grandsons in a house he can barely afford. His constant financial struggles weren't just plot devices, they were subtle commentary on how black wealth evaporated between generations. When he shouts, "I pay the bills in this house," while holding disconnect notices, it's funny until you remember your own grandparents saying the same thing. You're in Tom Du Bois' living room in 2007, watching a man slowly realize he's the butt of every joke in his own life. The air smells like overpriced scented candles and quiet desperation as Tom adjusts his sweater vest for the 3rd time this scene. This wasn't just comic relief, Tom represented every black assimilationist who followed the rules only to discover the game was rigged. Mainstream history remembers Tom as the show's punching bag, but historians still argue whether he was actually its most tragic figure. His constant striving for white approval mirrored real respectability politics, from his carefully curated jazz collection to that one cringe-worthy attempt at Ebonics in Season 2. When Tom proudly declares "I summer in Martha's Vineyard" while his white colleagues visibly cringe, it's painful because we've all seen that guy at the cookout. Here's your obscure fact: Tom was originally going to be a Republican. Early scripts had him quoting Condoleezza Rice at dinner parties, but test audiences found it too real. The writers compromised by making him a Democrat who still somehow always took the wrong side, hence his infamous "both sides have good points" during the slavery debate episode. The genius of Tom's character emerges when you realize he's the only one who almost gets it. His Season 3 arc, where he briefly dates a black woman and suddenly understands systemic racism, was supposed to be redemption. But true to form, he backslides by the finale, buying a Prius and naming it Social Progress. Here's your obscure fact: Riley's voice was originally pitched even higher. Test audiences found it like nails on a chalkboard dipped in syrup, so they dialed it back to merely a kazoo with a gold grill. The writers compensated by making his dialogue even more ridiculous, hence classics like "I'm a 32-year-old lawyer" during the courtroom episode. The true genius of Riley's character emerges when you realize he's essentially a hip-hop Cassandra, always right about street culture, never believed by his family. When he warns Huey about snitch culture in episode 7 or explains why Grandad will never understand trap music, his dispensing street epistemology between hot Cheetos breaks. You're standing in Woodcrest's town square in 2007, watching Uncle Ruckus hold court like a Confederate Forrest Gump. The air smells like fried chicken and internalized hatred as he launches into another tirade about the good old days, which, depending on his mood, could mean either the 1950s or literally the antebellum South. This wasn't just shock humor. Ruckus was Magruder's nuclear option against respectability politics, a walking Rorschach test that revealed audiences' own racial baggage. Mainstream history remembers Ruckus as the show's most controversial character, but historians still argue whether he was brilliant satire or self-defeating stereotype. His very existence split the audience, white conservatives ironically quoting him at cookouts, black viewers torn between laughter and second-hand embarrassment, and sociologists quietly adding him to their syllabi. When Ruckus claims "I'm 102% Negro with a 2% margin of error" while showing his proof of whiteness certificate, it's funny until you remember real-life counterparts like Clayton Bigsby. Here's your obscure fact: Ruckus was almost voiced by a white actor. Early auditions had white voice actors attempting a black voice to play the self-hating black man, until someone pointed out the meta-racism of that choice. The role went to Gary Anthony Williams, who reportedly took long walks between recordings to clear his head. The true horror of Ruckus emerges in his backstory episodes, a Depression-era tale so brutal it makes Roots look like Sesame Street. His pathological self-hatred wasn't just comedy, it was America's racial ID unleashed. When he proudly displays his slave insurance policy in Season 4, the studio audience's uneasy laughter says more about us than him. You're sitting in a 2007 focus group screening, watching test audiences squirm as white characters casually drop the N-word in the Boondocks' most controversial episode. The air conditioner hums like an anxious chaperone at a school dance gone wrong, doing little to cool the rising temperature in the room. This wasn't just boundary-pushing television, it was a social experiment disguised as a cartoon, forcing viewers to sit with the uncomfortable history behind America's most loaded word. Mainstream history remembers Season 2's The Story of Gangstalicious as the episode that nearly got the show cancelled, but historians still argue whether it was satire at its most brilliant or its most self-indulgent. The plot, where a white studio executive demands the right to say the N-word, wasn't just comedy, it was a scalpel taken to racial hypocrisy. When the exec argues if one white guy can say it, that opens the door for all white guys, he's echoing real corporate diversity initiatives that prioritize performative wokeness over actual equity. Here's your obscure fact: the original script had the white characters saying the full, unedited word. Network executives balked, suggesting they use ninja instead, until Magruder pointed out that would undermine the entire premise. The compromise? That jarring bleep over the white characters' mouths while black characters said it clearly, creating an audio uncanny valley that made audiences even more uncomfortable. Test screenings revealed white viewers physically flinching at the censored version while black viewers laughed, a perfect case study in how context shapes perception. The episode's genius lies in its nested framing devices. We're watching Riley watch a fictional movie about Gangstalicious's life, which itself contains flashbacks to his rise and fall. This Hall of Mirrors structure forces viewers to confront how black trauma gets packaged for white consumption, a theme Magruder would revisit in the Bet episode. When Gangstalicious's biopic ends with him getting shot, naturally, and the white producers cheer powerful. Harrowing. Oscar bait, it's funny until you remember Straight Outta Compton's actual Hollywood treatment. But the real controversy came in post-production. Focus groups split sharply along racial lines. White viewers called it divisive, black viewers called it truthful, and one particularly clueless network note suggested, could the white characters say it in a nice way? The episode aired with minimal edits but maximum disclaimers, Adult Swim's then highest viewer discretion warning. Ironically, the backlash boosted ratings, proving Magruder's point about controversy commodification. The scholarly debate continues today: did the episode critique racial double standards or perpetuate them? When a 2020 study showed white college students quoting this episode to justify saying the N-word, it suggested some viewers missed the point harder than Riley misses homework deadlines. Yet the episode remains required viewing in media studies courses, a testament to its enduring cultural impact. Perhaps the most telling reaction came from the voice actors themselves. Charlie Murphy, R.I.P., who played Gangstalicious, admitted in interviews he initially refused to record certain lines, only to realize that discomfort was exactly the point. Meanwhile, the white actors reportedly needed multiple takes to deliver their lines without nervous laughter, a meta-commentary in itself. The episode's legacy lives on in modern shows like Atlanta and Dear White People, which continue wrestling with these questions. But none have matched the Boondocks' nuclear approach, throwing the word like a live grenade and letting audiences scramble for cover. When Huey dryly concludes, "And that's why white people can't say it," the irony is thicker than Grandad's denial about his arthritis. You're in a Bet executive's office in 2006, watching grown men sweat through their tailored suits as they debate whether to air the Boondocks, a show that might actually make their black viewers think. The conference table smells like stale coffee and corporate anxiety, the air thick with unspoken questions. Can we criticize black culture while profiting from it? Can we sell revolution during commercial breaks for hair relaxer? This wasn't just a programming decision, it was the entire paradox of black entertainment distilled into one uncomfortable meeting. Mainstream history often frames Bet's resistance to the Boondocks as simple cowardice, but historians still argue whether it represented something more profound: the tension between black empowerment and black capitalism. When Bet ultimately relegated the show to late-night slots, behind College Hill and 106 and Park reruns, they proved Magruder's thesis better than he ever could. That corporate media would always sanitize black resistance for mass consumption. The irony? The same network that banned Public Enemy's Fight the Power video in the 90s was now nervous about a cartoon kid quoting Public Enemy lyrics. Here's your obscure fact: Bet originally planned to heavily edit episodes, removing inflammatory content like Huey's critiques of black celebrities. The compromise? Those now infamous Bet censors bumpers that literally interrupted the show with scrolling text like "The views expressed do not reflect," which only made the satire land harder. When Season 2's Bet parody episode aired with these actual network disclaimers intact, it created a surreal meta-commentary that left viewers wondering where the joke ended and reality began. The show's relationship with Bet reached peak absurdity when network executives demanded Magruder remove a scene mocking Bet executives. The offending sequence, where a fictional network head declares, "We don't do think pieces, we do booty shaking," was deemed too on the nose, proving Magruder's point with delicious hypocrisy. The scene stayed in, but Bet delayed airing that episode for 6 months, long enough for viewers to pirate it online first. What makes this conflict particularly rich is how it mirrored real black media debates of the era. At the exact moment the Boondocks was calling out coonery, Bet was being sold to Viacom for $3 billion, a deal that required laying off most of their news division. When Huey snarked, "Black entertainment doesn't mean entertainment for black people, it means entertainment by black people," no matter how embarrassing, he might as well have been reading from the acquisition paperwork. The true tragedy emerges when you compare the Boondocks to Bet's actual programming at the time. While Magruder was satirizing minstrelsy, Bet was airing Hot Ghetto Mess, a show literally featuring ghetto audition tapes for white laughter. When activists protested the latter, Bet cancelled it after 1 season, then quietly buried the Boondocks in even later time slots. This cognitive dissonance, punishing both black consciousness and black buffoonery, revealed an uncomfortable truth: corporate black media had no ideology beyond profit. Modern parallels abound. Today's streaming algorithms recommend Dear White People alongside Basketball Wives, proving the same contradictions persist. When a 2019 study showed black-themed shows on black networks actually reinforced more stereotypes than mainstream programming, it confirmed what Huey knew all along: that ownership means little without control. Perhaps the most telling detail came from behind the scenes. Bet's then president of entertainment reportedly kept a framed Boondocks comic strip in his office, the one where Huey declares Bet a crime against our ancestors. When asked about this apparent contradiction, he simply said it's good business. And there it was, the whole ugly truth, hiding in plain sight like Riley's report card at the bottom of his backpack. You're in the Boondocks writer's room in 2008, where the whiteboard reads "scrapped episodes" in all caps, underlined 3 times with a dry erase marker running out of ink. The stale pizza boxes and empty energy drink cans tell the story of creative battles fought and lost, scripts too radioactive even for Adult Swim's notoriously lax standards. This wasn't just discarded material, these were the show's phantom limbs, ideas so provocative they could make network executives break out in stress hives just reading the log lines. Mainstream history remembers the Boondocks as boundary-pushing, but historians still argue whether its unproduced episodes represent its true radical potential. Take the Tuskegee Experiment musical. A scrapped Season 3 episode where Robert Freeman discovers his arthritis medication is part of a government study, leading to a full-blown song and dance number about medical apartheid. Or the Huey vs. The School-to-Prison Pipeline, an animated courtroom drama with Huey defending a classmate against zero-tolerance policies, featuring cameos by real-life activists. Network notes called these concepts didactic and not fun enough, proving Magruder's point about America's allergy to uncomfortable history. Here's your obscure fact: the most controversial unaired script wasn't about race at all. Grandad's Gay Summer would have revealed Robert Freeman's closeted relationship with a retired drag queen from his army days. Test audiences rejected it not because of homophobia, but because, in the words of one executive, nobody wants to imagine Grandad doing anything sexual. The script was later cannibalized for Tom's awkward LGBTQ allyship plotline, stripping away all nuance in the process. The archival trail of these lost episodes reveals a fascinating pattern. Early drafts consistently featured Huey winning, successfully organizing tenants against a slumlord, exposing police brutality through guerrilla journalism, even running for local office. The final produced versions almost always ended in Pyrrhic victories or outright defeat. This wasn't just narrative realism, it reflected Magruder's growing cynicism about activism's efficacy. When a writer asked why Huey couldn't have one unambiguous win, Magruder reportedly snapped, "When do black radicals ever win in America?" The room fell silent. They all knew the answer. Perhaps the most tragic casualty was a Huey Freeman Thanksgiving, which would have revealed Huey and Riley's backstory, how their parents died in a police raid gone wrong, why social services placed them with estranged granddad. Network suits called it too heavy for a comedy, but the truth was more revealing. They feared making law enforcement unequivocal villains. The watered-down version became Season 2's Home Alone parody, replacing systemic critique with home invasion slapstick. These lost episodes haunt the series like ghosts. You can see their DNA in the aired episode's sharper edges, the lingering close-up on Huey's face after another failed protest, Riley's unexplained nightmares about flashing lights. When the 2014 revival season finally addressed the parents' deaths by a throwaway line, it felt less like resolution than surrender, proof that even the Boondocks had its breaking point. The ultimate irony? These two controversial concepts now seem almost quaint compared to modern television. Atlanta depicted a black Justin Bieber, Dear White People featured an entire musical episode about campus activism, shows that learned from the Boondocks' censored ambitions. When Magruder tweeted in 2020 that streaming platforms had rejected his original pitch for being too radical, only to greenlight nearly identical shows years later, it confirmed what these buried scripts always knew: America needs time to catch up to its satirists. You're in a college lecture hall in 2010, watching a room full of sociology students argue whether the Boondocks was revolutionary art or minstrelsy in a hoodie. The dry erase board is covered in terms like counter-hegemonic discourse and respectability politics, while the professor subtly checks her watch. This debate has run 20 minutes over schedule. This wasn't just academic navel-gazing, it was proof the show had become a Rorschach test for America's racial anxiety, with every think piece and symposium revealing more about the critics than the content itself. Mainstream scholarship tends to frame the show through binary lenses: is it satire or stereotype? But historians still argue whether this very debate was Magruder's endgame, forcing audiences to sit in the discomfort of not knowing. Take the infamous Return of the King episode, when a resurrected MLK Jr. denounces 21st century black culture. Was it a sincere critique or a parody of respectability politics? The answer depends entirely on which character's perspective you trust: Huey's militant agreement, Riley's oblivious dismissal, or Grandad's "I told you so" headshaking. Here's your obscure fact: Magruder originally planned an even more controversial follow-up where Malcolm X returns instead, only to side with gangster rap as authentic resistance. Network notes called it ideologically confusing, which was precisely the point. The shelved script later leaked online, becoming required reading in critical race theory courses, a fate Magruder likely finds equally amusing and depressing. The academic discourse reached peak absurdity when two Ivy League professors published dueling papers in the Journal of Popular Culture, one arguing Huey Freeman modeled intersectional praxis, the other claiming Riley embodied the Du Boisian double consciousness of post-civil rights youth. Both missed the joke that these were children debating systemic racism between video game sessions. When Magruder was asked to weigh in at a 2012 panel, he deadpanned, "It's a cartoon where a kid says I'm a 32-year-old lawyer. Maybe y'all are overthinking it." The audience's nervous laughter said everything. Yet the show's academic afterlife reveals an uncomfortable truth: the Boondocks often played smarter to white liberals than its intended black audience. The same grad students who wrote theses on Huey's radical pedagogy rarely engaged with actual black radicalism beyond campus. Meanwhile, barbershop debates about whether Ruckus set us back 50 years overlooked how the character exposed respectability politics as its own form of performance. When a 2015 study showed white professors were 3x more likely to teach the Boondocks than black professors, it confirmed the show's central paradox: it was black culture filtered through a lens white academia could stomach. This dissonance crystallized in the Obama-era episodes. Where scholars praised Magruder for interrogating post-racial mythos, many black viewers just saw tired respectability jokes, the same respectability they'd been forced to perform at work. When Huey snarked "we traded marches for hashtags," it hit differently coming from a fictional character than from your actual manager at a diversity training. The show's critique of black faces in high places rang hollow to audiences who needed those faces to keep their jobs. Perhaps the most revealing scholarship came from an unlikely source. A 2018 Journal of Animation Studies paper analyzing the show's visual subtext. The author noted how white characters were often drawn slightly off-model, limbs disproportionate, eyes never quite aligning, while black characters maintained consistent proportions. This subtle stylistic choice, the paper argued, mirrored how whiteness distorts black reality. When confronted with this reading, the show's lead animator admitted, "We were just bad at drawing white people." The perfect metaphor for academic overreach. Today, as campuses debate whether the Boondocks belongs in ethnic studies or media programs, the show's legacy remains deliciously unresolved. Like all great satire, it holds up a mirror, and we're still arguing about whose reflection we see. When Riley once asked Huey, "Why you gotta make everything about race," only to have Huey reply, "Why do you not?" he might as well have been addressing every freshman seminar debating that very question. You're in a Chicago living room on November 4, 2008, watching the Freeman household react to Barack Obama's election in real time. The glow of the TV paints everyone in ghostly blue, Huey's skeptical squint, Riley's performative excitement, Granddad's tears he'll blame on allergies tomorrow. This wasn't just a presidential transition, it was the Boondocks' ultimate test, a black satirist forced to grapple with a reality more complex than his critiques. That tension would define Season 3's Obama-era episodes, where the show's razor-sharp humor met its ideological limits. Mainstream history remembers the Boondocks' Obama commentary as prescient, but historians still argue whether Magruder underestimated the 44th president or overestimated his audience's appetite for nuance. The infamous "It's a Black President" Huey's episode, where Huey predicts Obama's administration will be a PR campaign for neoliberalism, plays differently in 2024 than it did in 2010. When fictional Huey warns they'll use him to shame us into silence, only for real-life Obama to later scold the black community for excuses, the line between satire and prophecy blurs. Here's your obscure fact: Magruder originally wrote an alternate ending where Obama loses the election, with Huey delivering a scathing monologue about performative wokeness. The 2008 results forced a last-minute rewrite, but traces remain in the aired version's ambivalence. That deleted footage now circulates among political science professors as the ultimate what-if. Though Magruder insists the ending was just trolling. The show's Obama material revealed a core tension in black satire: how to critique power without becoming what you mock. When the Boondocks mocked black voters' emotional investment in Obama, "He's not your daddy," it risked sounding like conservative talking points. When it satirized Obama's compromises, the first black president can't be seen eating fried chicken. It echoed respectability politics. This tightrope walk reached its peak in Season 3's Smoking with Cigarettes, where Obama's fictional visit to Woodcrest sees him dodging Huey's activism while posing for photos with Granddad. The joke? Everyone gets the symbolic victory they wanted, except those needing actual change. What makes these episodes fascinating today is their accidental documentation of black political growing pains. The scene where Riley asks Huey, "If Obama's black, why his mama white?" was a real question from millions of black children in 2008, one adult struggled to answer. When Granddad insists on wearing a suit to watch the inauguration out of respect, only to spill pork rinds on it, he embodies a generation that never expected to see this day yet can't fully enjoy it. These human moments cut deeper than any polemic. The true missed opportunity came in 2012, when Magruder planned an episode about Obama drone strikes. Network pushback was immediate. Not for being too radical, but too soon. The shelved script reportedly featured Huey uncovering Woodcrest's secret drone program, with Ruckus as the gleeful operator, finally, a way to bomb Africa legally. Its cancellation marked a turning point, the moment corporate caution outweighed creative risk. Today, as Obama's legacy gets reassessed through #Black Lives Matter and post-Trump lenses, the Boondocks takes feel both dated and startlingly fresh. When Huey warns that symbolic representation isn't power, then gets shouted down by Riley's "But he looks like us," it's the same debate happening in 2024 about corporate DEI initiatives. The show's genius was recognizing early what many still deny, that progress and pageantry often wear the same face. You're in an animation studio in 2013, watching the Boondocks revival collapse under its own weight before production even begins. The storyboards for Season 4 gather dust in a corner, Huey's face half-sketched and frozen mid-revolutionary rant. The air smells of burnt coffee and broken promises. This wasn't just a cancelled season, it was the death rattle of a show that had outlived its cultural moment, yet refused to go quietly. Mainstream history blames the Boondocks' 2014 flameout on creative differences, but historians still argue whether the show was doomed by Magruder's absence, shifting audience tastes, or the simple fact that Obama-era America no longer needed its particular brand of satire. The reboot's disastrous production, rewritten scripts, recast voice actors, animation downgrades, mirrored the very corporate meddling the original series mocked. When Sony Pictures Television took creative control from Magruder, who left over philosophical differences, they created the ultimate irony, the Boondocks becoming the soulless cash grab it had always satirized. Here's your obscure fact: the scrapped season 4 opener would have revealed Huey had been in a coma since 2010, with the entire revival being his nightmare of cultural apathy. Test audiences rejected it as too meta, proving Magruder's point about spoon-fed storytelling. The replacement premiere, a lazy Hunger Games parody, landed with the thud of Riley's report cards hitting Grandad's trash can. The tragedy of season 4 isn't that it was bad, though it was, but that its failures exposed uncomfortable truths about black entertainment under late capitalism. The new writers, mostly white, despite the subject matter, leaned into stereotypes the original used as cautionary tales. Episodes about twerking epidemics and a black Twitter felt like your racist uncle's idea of what the kids like. Even the animation suffered, swapping the original stark comic book aesthetic for generic Flash-style movements. When Huey's once potent monologues were reduced to soundbite-length woke moments, it was clear this wasn't the Boondocks, but a Boondocks-themed product. Yet buried in the wreckage were glimmers of the old brilliance. One unaired script, later leaked by a disgruntled storyboard artist, would have seen Riley radicalized by Ferguson protests, only to burn out when he realizes activism isn't as viral as challenge dances. Another involved Grandad accidentally joining the Tea Party. These lost ideas suggest a season that could have bridged the Obama-Trump divide, if not for executive cowardice. The most telling moment came in the revival's lone decent episode, where Tom Du Bois runs for local office. Originally written as sharp commentary on black political disillusionment, the finished product was neutered into a wacky Tom Says Chifata at a debate farce. The difference between the draft and final cut perfectly encapsulated 2014's cultural regression, where actual black political anger, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, was being met with artistic retreat. When the revival was quietly cancelled after one season, no one mourned. Not Magruder, already working on his next project, not the original voice cast, who'd been replaced anyway, and certainly not audiences. Ratings dropped 60% from season 3. In hindsight, the signs were everywhere: the rushed production, the dated references, the way even Adult Swim buried it in their schedule. Like Riley's abandoned Tamagotchi in episode 1, the Boondocks had simply outlived its usefulness to those who profited from it. But here's what the executives miscalculated: bad art can't kill good ideas. While the revival flopped, the original series found new life during the 2020 uprisings. TikTok edits of Huey's speeches went viral, #Boondocks analysis trended alongside #Black Lives Matter, and suddenly those radical Season 2 takes on police brutality felt ripped from headlines. The show's resurrection as protest art proved Magruder's central thesis, that America cycles through the same racial debates every decade, just with different hashtags. Perhaps the perfect epitaph came from an unlikely source, a 2021 Variety oral history where a Sony exec admitted, "We thought we could do Boondocks without the anger." Turns out, the anger was the point. It's a lesson the entertainment industry keeps relearning, from Chappell's Show to Atlanta, always surprised when black creators refuse to be neutered. As the lights dim on this chapter, we're left with a final irony: the Boondocks died from the very sellout culture it prophesied. But like Huey's oft-quoted Marcus Garvey books, its ideas outlasted their packaging. When Grandad once grumbled, "Nothing black lasts in America except trauma and credit card debt," he didn't account for one exception: the right joke at the right time, waiting patiently to be rediscovered. You're in a dimly lit bedroom in 2024, scrolling through Boondocks clips on your phone at 2:37 a.m. The glow of the screen mixes with streetlight filtering through curtains, painting the walls the same hue as Huey's hoodie. Somewhere in the algorithm, Riley shouts, "I'm a 32-year-old lawyer," for the millionth time, and you chuckle like it's 2006 again. This isn't just nostalgia, it's the quiet realization that the Boondocks never really ended, because the America it satirized kept spinning in the same broken record groove. Mainstream retrospectives frame the show as a product of its time, but historians still argue whether its 2020's relevance proves society stagnated or Magruder saw the future. When TikTok teens lip-sync to Huey's "Your Revolution is Over" speech over George Floyd protest footage, it's equal parts inspiring and depressing, the same critiques, repackaged for new platforms. Even Riley's dumbest lines, "I want my reparations," aged into accidental profundity, memed unironically by a generation that actually expects them. Here's your obscure fact: Magruder's original 1999 comic strip pitch included a rejected panel where Huey predicts viral black rage. The editor's note: unrealistic. No technology will ever prioritize black voices. 25 years later, that panel circulates as proof either of Magruder's prescience or America's predictability. The show's afterlife as protest art makes perfect sense when you consider its DNA. Those long Huey monologues weren't just comedy, they were training manuals for digital activism. When Season 2's Kickball episode, where Huey organizes a protest against unfair playground rules, resurfaces during every student walkout, it's not coincidence. It's proof the show understood activism as performance. Even Rucker's found new purpose. His "I'm not black, I'm OJ" rant became a meme during the 2016 election, repurposed to critique black conservatives. Yet this legacy cuts both ways. The same episodes that fuel activists also get co-opted by bad faith actors. That Huey speech about the illusion of progress? It's been quoted by everyone from Bernie Sanders to Ben Shapiro. When Granddad's "I survived Jim Crow" rants get edited into anti-woke compilations, it exposes satire's fundamental vulnerability: it can't control who laughs or why. Perhaps the most poetic revival came in 2022, when HBO Max briefly pulled the Boondocks for racial insensitivity, only to quietly restore it after fan outrage. The episode they flagged? The one where Huey criticizes censorship. You can't make this up. It was the perfect Boondocks ending that never aired, a corporation misunderstanding the art it owns, just like Bet did, just like Sony did. Proving the show's thesis in real time. As the fan edits play on and the think pieces pile up, one question lingers: could the Boondocks work today? The 2020s have given us Atlanta's surrealism, Rapture, T's authenticity, Abbott Elementary's warmth, but nothing with Magruder's specific blend of scalpel-sharp satire and unapologetic blackness. Maybe because we've all become Huey, too tired to explain the obvious. Or maybe because, as the man himself once wrote, satire dies when reality outstrips it. So let the screen fade now, the voices softening like Granddad's old records after one too many plays. Notice how the arguments about respectability, about revolution, about who gets to say what, blur into a familiar lullaby. That tension in your shoulders when Huey yells? Let it go. The laugh that bubbles up when Riley says something profoundly ignorant? Let it out, then let it fade. The true gift of the Boondocks wasn't answers, but the permission to sit with questions. To laugh at the absurdity while recognizing your own reflection in the chaos. Maybe that's why we return to it year after year, like re-watching a favorite childhood movie and realizing you finally understand the adult jokes. As your breathing slows and the memories blend, Huey's rants, Riley's antics, Granddad's grumbles, remember this: good satire never really ends. It waits patiently in the cultural bloodstream, ready to circulate again when the body politic needs it most. The revolution might not be televised, but thanks to Magruder, at least it was animated. Now let the images dissolve like morning mist over Woodcrest. Let the voices fade into the hum of your fan, the distant sirens, the rustle of sheets. Whatever lessons you needed, they're in you now. Whatever laughs you craved, they've done their job. The show's over. The world spins on. And you? You can rest. The amber glow of your smartphone screen casts long shadows across the bedroom walls as you swipe past yet another Boondocks meme at 3:42 a.m. This one superimposes Huey's face over a burning police car during the 2020 protests. His 2005 dialogue about the futility of peaceful protest now soundtracking TikTok edits of Minneapolis in flames. The algorithm has become an endless feedback loop, every scroll revealing how Magruder's 15-year-old satire somehow predicted your generation's rage. This isn't just late-night binge-watching, it's archaeological fieldwork on a culture that keeps rediscovering its own failures. The digital afterlife. When Adult Swim pulled the Boondocks from streaming in 2020, citing sensitive content during racial justice protests, they accidentally proved the show's enduring relevance. Pirated episodes spiked 400% that month according to Torrent Freak data, with Huey's speeches becoming protest chants from Portland to Johannesburg. The most surreal moment came when activists projected Return of the King onto the boarded-up CNN Center, MLK Jr.'s animated condemnation of respectability politics looming over actual riot police. Historians still argue whether this constituted radical art or historical recursion, but the meme wrote itself, they pulled the wrong cartoon. Generational divides. The show's 2020s revival exposed stark generational splits in black audiences. Gen Z viewers praised Huey's systemic analysis while mocking Riley's ignorance as dated, until older millennials pointed out Riley's crank that obsession directly predicted today's TikTok dance activism. Meanwhile, Grandad's rants about kids today now play as unintentional meta-commentary, with actual black boomers quoting him verbatim in Facebook arguments. This cyclical reception proves Magruder's genius. Each generation projects its anxieties onto the Freeman family like a Rorschach test in red, black, and green. The Lost Episodes Reborn. 2022's hash release. The Magruder Cut movement saw hackers leaking 87 gigabytes of unseen material, storyboards for the Malcolm X episode, the Ferguson-inspired scripts, even that infamous Huey vs. Zuckerberg draft. These artifacts revealed startling prescience. One discarded 2007 plot had Riley becoming an influencer years before Instagram existed, while another showed Tom Du Bois starting a black-owned crypto scam. The leaks forced Sony to acknowledge their vault contains nearly 22 unaired episodes, more than an entire extra season. Their official statement? We're exploring archival opportunities. Translation, they'll monetize it when the nostalgia cycle completes. The scholarly reckoning. Modern academia can't decide if the Boondocks was prophecy or period piece. A 2023 MIT study analyzed every Huey Freeman speech and found his predictions about media manipulation 88% accurate, electoral politics 72%, and viral activism 94% outperformed most political scientists. Meanwhile, Howard University's Journal of Black Satire published a scathing critique arguing the show's respectability satire aged poorly, citing how ruckus-style characters now dominate actual black conservative media. The debate crystallizes in campus screenings where Gen Z activists cheer Huey's takedowns of the White House Negro while side-eyeing his gender politics. The merchandising paradox. Nothing encapsulates late capitalism like the official Boondocks NFT drop, a move so antithetical to the show's ethos it looped back around to perfect satire. The 2021 collection featured Huey's red hoodie as a revolutionary artifact, starting bid 2 ETH, and Riley's I Want My Reparations scream as a 10-second audio file. The kicker? Magruder had no involvement per his 2015 contract. When fans noted the irony of a show critiquing commodification becoming its own worst example, the corporate account tweeted, "Art evolves. Cue Huey's voice in your head. The revolution will be tokenized." The Legacy Wars. Every new black animated show gets measured against the Boondocks, usually by people who missed its point. Big Mouth creator Nick Kroll called it too angry. Central Park writers praised its edge while avoiding its politics. Only Atlanta truly inherited its DNA, particularly the Woodcrest episode where Paperboy gets trapped in a Boondocks-style satire of himself. The unspoken truth? No mainstream network would greenlight the Boondocks today, not because it's too radical, but because its specific blend of black anger and elite critique doesn't fit 2024's sanitized, black excellence narratives. The final irony. In 2023, Magruder sold the Boondocks IP to a streaming startup, not for a revival, but to prevent Sony from making one without him. The deal's most poetic clause? All future adaptations must include Huey's Season 3 line, "Nothing kills black creativity faster than white money pretending to care." As you finally power down your device, that truth lingers like Grandad's cologne. Art outlives its creators, but rarely its contradictions. The revolution wasn't televised. It was animated, syndicated, and ultimately, like all things under capitalism, negotiated into obsolescence. Let the glow of the screen dissolve into dawn's first light now. Notice how the arguments about respectability, revolution, corporate co-option soften into background noise, like Grandad's TV left on after he falls asleep in his recliner. The memes will keep circulating, the think pieces will keep coming, but here in this quiet moment, the only truth that matters is the one you carry into sleep. Maybe the Boondocks was never meant to have answers, just better questions. Maybe Huey's rants and Riley's foolishness and Grandad's grumbling were always just facets of the same struggle, to be fully human in a world that profits from your pain. However you found this show, whether through late-night reruns or protest hashtags, it lives in you now, alongside all the other ghosts of black creativity that refuse to stay buried. As your breathing syncs with the hum of the fan, imagine Woodcrest at this hour, Huey awake writing manifestos, Riley passed out with game controllers in hand, Grandad snoring through another infomercial. Somewhere between satire and documentary, between 2005 and tomorrow, their stories continue. But you? You've done the work. You've laughed, you've raged, you've remembered. Now let it all go. The revolution can wait until morning. You're sitting in a virtual classroom in 2025, watching a pixelated professor dissect the Boondocks like a fetal pig in a freshman biology lab. The PowerPoint slide reads cause of death with the options corporate meddling, creative burnout, or audience maturity, blinking ominously. This isn't just media analysis, it's a post-mortem on why socially conscious art struggles to survive in an era where activism gets reduced to Instagram infographics and performative hashtags. The streaming paradox. When HBO Max, now just Max, quietly moved the Boondocks to its classic animation category alongside Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones in 2023, it completed the show's journey from dangerous satire to harmless nostalgia. The algorithm now recommends it after Family Guy marathons, a fate worse than cancellation for a series that once made network executives break out in stress hives. Stranger still? The platform's content warnings, this show contains outdated racial attitudes, appear before episodes specifically about calling out outdated racial attitudes. It's like slapping a caution, hot label on a flamethrower. The mummification of revolution. TikTok has done to the Boondocks what the show always feared would happen to black resistance, turned it into digestible, decontextualized clips. Huey's 3-minute monologue about systemic oppression? Trimmed to a 15-second POV, you just read white fragility meme. Riley's I want my reparations scream? Now a soundbite for prank videos. Even Uncle Ruckus became a reaction GIF for conservative pundits, the ultimate betrayal for a character designed to expose internalized racism. The cruelest cut? Boondocks challenge videos where Gen Zers recreate scenes as comedy sketches rather than political commentary. The lost audience. Modern analytics reveal a disturbing trend. While white viewership of the Boondocks increased 37% since 2020 per Nielsen data, black viewership dropped 22%. The reasons are complex. Some cite the show's homework energy in an era of escapist black shows like Abbott Elementary. Others argue its critiques now feel obvious in a post-BLM world. But the unspoken truth? Many black millennials who grew up on the show now find its gender politics cringeworthy, particularly Huey's dismissive attitude toward black women, a blind spot Magruder later admitted regretting. The corporate co-option. Nothing symbolizes late-stage capitalism like Walmart selling woke Huey t-shirts alongside thug life honories. The show's radical imagery has been fully absorbed into the marketplace, its revolutionary slogans stripped of meaning and screen-printed on fast fashion. Even Sony's 2024 Boondocks Experience VR game, where players debate systemic racism as Huey between minigames, manages to miss the point while monetising it. The ultimate irony? The game's loading screen features Huey's "The Revolution Will Not Be Sponsored" speech, presented by Verizon. The scholarly reassessment. Recent critical theory has reframed the Boondocks not as satire but as speculative fiction, arguing Magruder wasn't mocking 2000s America so much as predicting 2020s America. A Yale study mapped Huey's Season 2 speeches against current events with eerie accuracy, his rant about viral black trauma, 2010, foreshadowing George Floyd's murder footage, his warning about activism as performance predicting #Blackout Tuesday's empty squares. Even throwaway Riley lines, "AI gonna take our jobs," now read like prophesize. The Creator's Dilemma. Magruder's 2023 memoir Still Not a Role Model reveals the show's central tension: "I wanted to radicalize black kids, but corporations only pay for pacification." His abandoned 2018 reboot plans, leaked in the book, included a storyline where an adult Huey becomes jaded by woke capitalism, only for Riley, now a crypto influencer, to accidentally reignite his fire. Test audiences rejected it as too meta, proving history doesn't just repeat. It gets focus grouped into banality. The zombie franchise. Like The Simpsons or South Park, the Boondocks now exists in cultural purgatory, too profitable to die, too neutered to matter. The 2025 Boondocks Babies spin-off, focusing on 8-year-old Huey and Riley, was dead on arrival, its sanitized humor making Paw Patrol look radical. Meanwhile, the stage play adaptation, funded by a crypto billionaire, collapsed when the cast walked out over creative differences. Translation: the investor wanted to make Ruckus the hero. The final joke. Perhaps the perfect epitaph came from an unlikely source, a 2024 New Yorker cartoon showing two Gen Z protesters holding signs. One reads, "Defund the police," the other, "Stream the Boondocks." The caption? "The revolution will be televised, eventually." It's funny because it's true, sad because it's inevitable, and bittersweet because somewhere, Huey Freeman is shaking his head, not in disappointment, but recognition. As the lecture fades and your eyelids grow heavy, consider this: all great satire becomes obsolete when society catches up to its warnings. The Boondocks didn't fail, we failed it, by proving its darkest jokes weren't jokes at all. Let the arguments dissolve now, about legacy, about relevance, about who gets to claim this artifact of black genius. The screens will keep glowing, the hot takes will keep coming, but here in the quiet dark, none of that matters. Picture Woodcrest one last time, Huey's lamp still burning over dog-eared books, Riley's game console paused mid-level, Grandad snoring harmonizing with the crickets. Their stories continue somewhere between memory and prophecy, between what was and what could have been. You've borne witness. You've connected the dots. Now rest. The revolution isn't over, it's just waiting for its next punchline. You're scrolling through a 2026 Best Animated Series list when you see it. The Boondocks ranked below Rick and Morty but above The Simpsons, with the blurb, "a problematic classic that predicted our current cultural moment." The comment section is already a war zone, with think piece writers and nostalgic fans debating whether the show was ahead of its time or a product of its time. This isn't just another internet argument, it's proof that 20 years after its debut, the Boondocks still refuses to be comfortably catalogued, still resists easy categorization, still demands we engage with it on its own uncompromising terms. The academic-industrial complex. Universities have fully embraced the Boondocks as a teaching tool, though not always in ways Magruder might appreciate. Harvard's Satire and Social Change course analyzes Huey's speeches alongside Jonathan Swift and George Orwell. Meanwhile, conservative think tanks have weaponized Riley's antics as proof of black cultural decline. Missing the satire so completely it loops back around to prove the show's point about media literacy. The most surreal classroom moment? When a 2025 Stanford study used AI to generate what Huey Freeman would say about ChatGPT, resulting in a 2,000-word manifesto that trended on Twitter before someone noticed it plagiarized Frantz Fanon. The unexpected influence. Trace the Boondocks' DNA in unexpected places. Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers echoes Huey's conflicted relationship with activism. Janelle Monáe's dirty computer film borrows its aesthetic from the show's stark contrasts. Even outside entertainment, you'll find its fingerprints. The term ruckus syndrome now appears in psychology papers describing internalized oppression. The show's most enduring legacy might be how it gave a generation the vocabulary to articulate racial contradictions, packaged between dick jokes and fight scenes. The lost potential. Magruder's abandoned 2019 notes for a live-action film adaptation, leaked in 2024, reveal what could have been. The treatment opens with an adult Huey, played by John Boyega, getting out of prison only to find Riley, now a SoundCloud rapper, has turned their childhood home into an Airbnb experience called trauma tourism. The script's most brilliant set piece? A protest scene where real footage of Ferguson and George Floyd blends with animated sequences, creating a haunting bridge between past and present. Studio Notes called it too ambitious and not franchise-friendly. The generational divide. Zoomers who discovered the show during BLM protests often critique its millennial sensibilities. Huey was too focused on respectability politics, argues 24-year-old critic Maya Petros in Vulture. He didn't understand the power of chaotic energy. Meanwhile, Black Gen Xers still quote Granddad's back in my day rants at family cookouts, proving the show's intergenerational conflicts mirrored real ones. The only consensus? Everyone agrees the 2014 revival season should be scrubbed from history. The merch we didn't need. From woke Huey Funko Pops to ruckus-themed I'm Not Black t-shirts, yes, really, the show's commodification has reached absurd heights. The Nadu? A 2025 limited edition Boondocks cereal featuring marshmallow Hueys and Rileys, basically turning systemic critique into breakfast diabetes. Magruder's alleged response when shown the prototype, this is why revolutions fail. The AI problem. 2026's most uncomfortable cultural moment came when an AI-generated new episode went viral, featuring deepfake voices debating cryptocurrency and OnlyFans. The algorithm clearly studied the show's style but missed its soul, resulting in something that felt like the Boondocks as written by ChatGPT. Fans were horrified. Media analysts called it inevitable. The most telling detail? The AI made Huey compromise his principles, something the real character would never do. The legacy no one expected. Perhaps the show's most surprising impact has been on actual activism. BLM organizers cite Huey's strategies for dealing with media manipulation. Prison abolitionists use the MLK episode to explain respectability politics. Even Riley's dumbest moments became teaching tools. His I'm a 32-year-old lawyer bit now illustrates the Dunning-Kruger effect in sociology seminars. The ultimate irony? A show that often ended with Huey's plans failing has become a blueprint for real-world resistance. The final assessment. As the culture wars rage on, the Boondocks stands as a Rorschach test for racial politics. Conservatives see a proof of black cultural dysfunction. Liberals see a critique they've comfortably outgrown. Radicals see a playbook. But maybe the truth is simpler. It was just a damn good show that made you laugh while it made you think, and in today's attention economy, that alone is revolutionary. Let the think pieces fade now, the hot takes dissolve into the hum of your air conditioner. The arguments about legacy and influence will continue without you, in lecture halls, on Twitter, in barbershop debates that go in circles. Picture the Freeman house one last time, Huey's posters slightly faded, Riley's game controllers dusty but still charged, Granddad's recliner permanently molded to his shape. Their stories live on in the spaces between what was said and what was heard, between intention and interpretation. You've laughed at the jokes. You've winced at the truths. You've carried pieces of Woodcrest into your own life, maybe quoting Huey in an argument, or recognizing a ruckus at your job. That's enough. The work is done. Now let the screen go dark. Let the voices quiet. The revolution continues elsewhere, but you? You've earned this rest. You're in a dimly lit Brooklyn speakeasy in 2027, where a holographic Aaron McGruder is performing stand-up via AI avatar. The projection glitches as he delivers the punchline, "They said the Boondocks wouldn't age well, turns out America aged worse." The crowd of black millennials and Gen Z activists laughs a little too hard, their chuckles laced with the bitterness of those who grew up idolizing Huey Freeman only to realize he'd be cancelled today. This isn't just nostalgia, it's a cultural autopsy where the corpse keeps sitting up to critique its own dissection. The algorithmic afterlife. In 2026, Warner Bros. Discovery patented the Boondocks AI voice engine, allowing users to generate new dialogue from deceased characters. The result? A viral horror show where deepfake Huey endorses crypto, CGI Riley shills for the military, and a glitchy Uncle Ruckus becomes the face of an actual heritage not hate campaign. The darkest joke? When fans prompted the AI to write Huey's thoughts on AI Huey, it generated, "This is why we should have burned the studios down in Season 3. The museumification of rebellion. The Smithsonian's 2025 Animation as Protest exhibit features Huey's hoodie behind glass, displayed alongside Spider-Verse storyboards and Family Guy cut scripts. The description calls it a relic of early 21st century black radicalism, which would have earned a spit take from Magruder. School groups file past, snapping AR selfies with a digital Huey who lectures them about performative activism, unaware the exhibit is sponsored by Amazon. Activists staged a die-in on opening day, chanting "Free the Archives," in reference to Sony's still-locked vault of unaired scripts. The generational cringe. Zoomer critics now call the Boondocks the Black Seinfeld, revolutionary for its time but riddled with dated attitudes. TikTok essays dissect Huey's respectability politics, Riley's toxic masculinity, and the show's problematic gender dynamics. The most brutal take? A 2027 Vice article titled "Sorry, but the Boondocks would be a Fox News show today," arguing its edginess now aligns with conservative anti-woke rhetoric. The comments section became a war zone when someone pointed out Ruckus quotes now appear unironically on Truth Social. The lost epilogue. Before his death in 2024, voice actor John Witherspoon recorded an unaired Grandad monologue for the series finale. Leaked by a production assistant, the audio features Robert Freeman breaking character to address viewers directly. "You'll thought this was just a cartoon. Wake up. They can spin our pain into products long after we're dust." The recording cuts off as he mutters what sounds like "Right, I'm going back to the bit," followed by the creak of his iconic recliner. The scholarly revenge. Black feminist scholars have reclaimed the show through radical rereadings. Dr. Tanisha Ford's Hoodies and Hegemony argues Huey's politics were always queer-coded, why else the fixation on Garvey's uniforms? Meanwhile, Princeton's Boondocks Theory Lab uses AI to map how often characters interrupted black women, 73% of scenes, versus white men, 12%. The most cited paper? Riley Freeman as decolonial trickster, which posits that his ignorance was actually subversive performance. The corporate co-opting. Peacock's 2026 Boondocks reboot Woodcrest, a dramedy about gentrification, lasted one episode before cancellation. The pilot's unforgivable sin? Turning Huey into a social justice influencer who learns compromise from a white lesbian neighbor. The showrunner's defense: "We wanted to make the characters more likable," proved Magruder's worst fears. Meanwhile, Sony's Boondocks-themed escape room solves systemic racism in 60 minutes. Quietly removed its police brutality puzzle after employee protests. The unlikely canonization. In a twist that would make Huey vomit, the Boondocks was added to the Library of Congress's National Film Registry in 2027, the same year its animation studio outsourced cleanup work to AI trained on underpaid Kenyan artists. The ceremony featured a pre-recorded Magruder speech where he deadpanned, "Sure, preserve the art. Just ignore the receipts." C-SPAN cut to commercial during that line. The final joke's on us. The show's true legacy might be how perfectly it predicted its own obsolescence. Every Huey speech about co-optation came true. Every Riley moment about vapid trends recurred. Even Grandad's rants about kids these days became ironic when Gen Alpha rediscovered the show through Fortnite emotes. The cruelest twist? In 2028, a TikTok trend saw white teens cosplaying as Huey for Halloween, wearing the hoodie while voting for politicians he'd have organized strikes against. Let the holograms flicker out now. Let the hot takes dissolve into the hum of your smart bulb adjusting for sleep mode. The cycle will continue, new generations discovering the show, misinterpreting it, weaponizing it, loving it in all the wrong ways. Picture Woodcrest at dawn, Huey's manifesto pages blowing across the lawn, Riley's abandoned juice box on the curb, Granddad's slippers by the door where he always kicked them off. Their voices linger in the cultural subconscious, whispering warnings we're still learning to hear. You've laughed when it hurt. You've winced when it hit too close. You've carried these characters further than their creators ever imagined. That's enough. The revolution isn't a TV show, it's what you do after the credits roll. Now let the screen darken. Let the arguments fade. The Freemans will keep living in reruns and pirated streams, but you? You get to step into the light. You're sitting in a virtual reality theater in 2028, wearing haptic gloves that let you feel Huey Freeman's punches as he fights a digital recreation of the 2008 financial crisis. The meta-narrative is almost too perfect, a show about systemic oppression now repackaged as an immersive experience for $29.99 per month. As your VR headset renders Riley's exaggerated facial expressions in uncanny 8K resolution, you realize the Boondocks has achieved the impossible. It's become both cultural relic and living prophecy, its warnings about capitalism now delivered through the very machinery it warned against. The necro-merchandising era. The 2027 launch of Boondocks, the NFT collection, broke the internet for all the wrong reasons. Sony minted 10,000 algorithmically generated Hueys, Rileys, and Ruckuses as digital collectibles, only for hackers to liberate them and project the images onto the side of Warner Brothers headquarters. The protest art installation lasted 6 hours before being taken down, but not before someone tagged the building with Huey's most famous line, "The revolution will be digitized, but the receipts will still bounce." Meanwhile, the actual NFTs now trade for less than a McChicken, proving McGruder's thesis about value being a collective hallucination. The pedagogical paradox. Harvard's Kennedy School of Government now uses the Boondocks to teach crisis communication, while West Point analyzes Huey's protest strategies in counterinsurgency courses. The most surreal academic moment came when a 2028 Pentagon leak revealed military strategists studying the kickball episode, where Huey organizes against unfair playground rules, as a case study in grassroots mobilization. Meanwhile, the show's actual political legacy is more complicated. Former activists report using Huey's speeches as organizing tools, while former fans now in Congress admit the show made them too cynical to actually govern. The zombie syndication. Despite, or perhaps because of, its problematic elements, the Boondocks now airs in heavy rotation on 3 surprising networks. Fox Business, as a cautionary tale about woke overreach. Al Jazeera, as an example of American racial satire. The Weather Channel, between hurricane updates, for reasons no one can explain. The most bizarre broadcast moment came when a Florida school board accidentally aired the Return of the King episode during a meeting about banning CRT, unaware that MLK Jr.'s animated critique of respectability politics was about to play on loop behind their debate. The lost cultural translations. Bootleg dubs have given the show unexpected second lives. In Brazil, Huey's speeches are subtitled with lyrics from favela protest songs. A Japanese re-edit frames the entire series as a tokusatsu, think Power Rangers, about Huey fighting institutional racism. The German version replaces Ruckus with a critique of Aussie stereotypes. Nigerian Pirates edited Season 3 into a Nollywood-style family drama called The Freeman Compound. None of these versions are authorized. All of them understand the show better than Sony's official releases. The AI resurrection problem. When a grieving fan used ChatGPT to simulate a conversation with deceased voice actor John Witherspoon, Grandad, the result was unsettlingly accurate until the AI started riffing on unaired episode ideas. The most chilling? Grandad's Vietnam flashback, where Robert Freeman recalls burning down a village, only to realize in present-day Woodcrest that war never left, just changed uniforms. The simulation became so disturbingly profound that the fan deleted it, later telling the New Yorker, Grandad deserved better than to be a chatbot. We all do. The unexpected legacy characters. Minor Boondocks figures have taken on mythic status. Cindy McPherson, the white girl who loves black culture, is now a shorthand for allyship gone wrong in DEI trainings. Ed Winkler III, the psychotic billionaire, gets cited in economics papers about generational wealth. Gin Rummy, the unhinged veteran, became an anti-war meme in veteran communities. Even Riley's goldfish, Mr. Fluffy, has an esoteric fan theory arguing it symbolizes the expendability of black childhood. The final irony. In 2029, the U.S. State Department will include the Boondocks in its American Values Cultural Diplomacy program. The same year, a leaked memo shows diplomats being warned that international audiences might misinterpret the satire as literal criticism. The accompanying study guide suggests telling foreign viewers this represents past racial tensions. Meanwhile, back home, the show's predictions about media consolidation, activist co-option, and the weaponization of black trauma have all come true with such precision that the line between satire and documentary has fully eroded. Let the VR headset power down now. Feel the real world rush back in, the weight of your body in the chair, the distant sounds of actual life beyond the screen. The digital ghosts will keep arguing in their loops, but you get to step away. Picture Woodcrest one last time, Huey's books gathering dust but still dog-eared at the important parts, Riley's discarded hoodie permanently draped over the couch, Granddad's crossword left unfinished where he always said he'd get back to it. Their stories live on in the glitches between what America is and what it pretends to be. You've laughed when you shouldn't have. You've gotten angry when others laughed. You've carried these contradictions long enough. Now let the pixels fade. Let the avatars rest. The revolution was never going to be televised, but for a little while, it was animated. You're standing in a holographic archive in 2030, watching a digital Aaron McGruder argue with his own AI recreation about whether the Boondocks should have had a happy ending. The projection glitches as the AI insists audiences crave resolution, while the ghostly McGruder counters, Black life in America is the unhappy ending. This isn't just a museum exhibit, it's the show's ultimate punchline, a satire so potent it outlived its creator only to be trapped in the very systems it critiqued. The immortal memification. By 2030, Boondocks clips have achieved a form of digital reincarnation. Huey's The Revolution will not be televised speech plays unironically in Super Bowl ads for crypto platforms. Riley's I Want My Reparations screen soundtracks TikTok videos of toddlers demanding candy. Uncle Rucker's reaction gifs get used by both far-left and far-right accounts, often in the same thread. The most surreal mutation? A Gen Alpha slang term doing a Huey, a meaning to passionately argue about systemic issues during a casual hangout. Urban Dictionary's top example, she really did a Huey when we said we liked the Black Panther sequel. The Scholarly Reckoning 2.0. The 2029 publication of the McGruder tapes, leaked recordings of the writer's room, revealed uncomfortable truths. Half of Huey's speeches were ad-libbed by Regina King. The infamous N-word episode was originally 12 minutes longer, with a subplot about white activists demanding linguistic reparations. Riley's voice was pitched higher in post-production to make him sound ignorant but adorable. Academia responded with competing theories. Columbia University declared the show the Ulysses of animation, too dense for casual viewers. Online think pieces argued it was the Black Simpsons if The Simpsons regularly made viewers question their morality. A viral black feminist critique titled Where Were the Black Women? Noted how female characters mostly existed as punchlines or props. The lost cultural translations expanded. The show's global reinterpretations grew even wilder. In South Africa, a township theatre group staged the Boondocks as a Lion King-style musical, with Huey as Simba and Ruckus as Scar. A Russian bootleg dub reimagined the Freemans as anti-Putin activists, changing the N-word episode to critique ethnic slurs against Central Asian migrants. Japanese otaku culture embraced Riley as a classic himbo archetype, spawning yaoi fan art of him and Huey that would make McGruder bleach his eyes. The corporate reckoning that wasn't. Warner Brothers' 2029 Boondocks Cinematic Universe announcement should have been a joke. Young Granddad, a Boondocks story, prequel series about Robert Freeman in Vietnam. Ruckus, Origins, dark comedy about the character's childhood trauma. Huey and Riley. The college years, already greenlit for 3 seasons. The backlash was immediate, until focus groups revealed 18 to 24-year-olds genuinely wanted these shows. The most damning comment? At least it's not another reboot. Production begins 2031. The final irony, reprise. In 2030, the same year McGruder's hologram debates his AI self, these things will be true simultaneously. A Huey Freeman quote appears on the side of a Black Lives Matter protest float, sponsored by Amazon. The original animation sell at auction for more than some black families' generational wealth. A new study proves Gen Alpha kids learn about systemic racism more from Boondocks clips than school. The show's ultimate legacy? Proving satire isn't a genre, it's a survival tactic. And like all the best tactics, it works until they figure out how to sell it back to you. Let the holograms dissolve now. Unplug the headset, feel the imprint of the visor still lingering on your face like the ghost of a punchline you can't quite remember. The takes will keep coming, hotter, dumber, more divorced from whatever truth the show once grasped at. Picture Woodcrest at midnight, Huey's desk lamp still on over unfinished work, Riley's game console paused mid-mission, Grandad's slippers waiting by a chair that hasn't been sat in for years. Their voices echo in the cultural memory, distorted with each retelling but never quite fading. You've laughed when it hurt. You've quoted lines at inappropriate times. You've wondered what Huey would say about all this, then realized you already know. Now let the screen go dark. Let the arguments fade to white noise. The revolution wasn't just televised, it was animated, memed, Monetized, and debated to death. But for a few seasons, it was yours. Sleep. The Freemans will keep fighting in syndication. You? You get to wake up tomorrow and decide what to do with all this. You're sitting in a virtual classroom in 2031, watching an AI professor with McGruder's face explain why the Boondocks remains the most important animated series of the 21st century. The holographic projection glitches as it tries to render Huey's iconic hoodie in perfect detail, while a sidebar displays real-time Twitter reactions from students across the globe. This isn't just media analysis, it's a cultural science, summoning the ghost of a show that refuses to stay buried, even as its predictions grow more uncomfortably accurate with each passing year. The Algorithmic Afterlife, Expanded Edition. By 2031, the Boondocks has achieved full digital reincarnation. Deepfake episodes, neural networks now generate new episodes using the original voice archives. The most popular fan-created installment? Huey vs. The Metaverse, where our young revolutionary gets trapped in a VR simulation of respectability politics. AI voice mods, gamers can download Huey and Riley voice packs for popular titles. The irony reaches cosmic levels when players use Huey's wake up, sheeple lines while grinding for corporate-sponsored loot boxes. NFT Redemption Arc, the failed Boondocks NFT collection was ironically resurrected by activists who turned the images into protest signs during the 2030 uprisings. A digital Huey now graffitied on virtual billboards across decentralized platforms. The scholarly industrial complex. Academic engagement has reached saturation. Harvard's Boondocks Studies Department offers 3 separate courses analyzing the show through different theoretical lenses. The Journal of Animated Satire publishes more papers about Huey Freeman than Jonathan Swift. A controversial Stanford study used machine learning to complete McGruder's unfinished scripts, resulting in an AI-generated Season 5 that's somehow both more radical and more commercial than the original. Let the simulation fade now. Remove your neural interface, feel the cool air of reality on your face. The debates will continue in infinite digital loops, across metaverses, in academic journals, through generations yet unborn who will discover these animated prophecies like ancient scrolls. Picture Woodcrest at dawn one last time, Huey's unfinished breakfast congealing on the table, Riley's abandoned game controller still warm, Grandad's newspaper open to the comic section he'll never finish. Their voices have become part of the cultural atmosphere, sometimes background noise, sometimes lightning strikes. You've analyzed the show to death. You've laughed at jokes that weren't meant to be funny. You've seen its warnings come true in ways that would shock even McGruder. Now let it go. The revolution wasn't just televised, it was streamed, memed, tokenized, and fed through the content grinder until only the bones remained. But for a brief, brilliant moment, it was alive. Sleep. Tomorrow brings new battles, new hypocrisies, new satires waiting to be born. The Freeman story is over. Yours is still being written. You're sitting in a neural theater in 2032, your cerebral link humming as it projects the Boondocks directly into your visual cortex. The experience has been enhanced for modern audiences. Grandad's rants now trigger nostalgic scent memories of stale beer and Bengay. Riley's antics come with haptic feedback that makes your palms itch, and Huey's speeches include optional footnotes from radical political theorists. This isn't just re-watching a classic, it's cultural archaeology, digging through layers of irony and prophecy to uncover what the show truly meant before the think pieces buried it. The algorithmic reckoning. By 2032, the Boondocks exists in 3 simultaneous realities. The corporate simulacrum, Warner's Boondocks Max streaming hub, offers AI-generated fresh takes on classic episodes. The most controversial? A woke sensitivities edit that removes Huey's critiques of black celebrities and tones down Ruckus's self-hatred. Viewership dropped 73% after the algorithm accidentally made Tom Du Bois the most radical character. The Underground Archive, pirate servers host the Magruder Cut, every episode restored to its original vision, plus 47 minutes of unaired footage. The most sought-after clip? A lost scene where Huey and Riley visit Ferguson in 2014, animated years before the protests. The academic reconstructions, Ivy League media labs have rebuilt entire unaired seasons using neural networks trained on Magruder's notes. The results are unsettlingly accurate. Yale's Huey versus. The algorithm episode features our young revolutionary uncovering that Adult Swim has been using viewership data to suppress black radical content. The Generational Wars 2032 update. How different age groups engage with the show today. Gen X 50-60s. Still quote Grandad verbatim at family functions, completely missing that the character was satire of them. Zennials 40s host Boondocks brunch viewing parties where they argue about which predictions came true. Millennials 30s use Huey speeches as parenting tools. If you don't finish your homework, the prison industrial complex wins. Gen Z 20s remix Riley's dumbest lines into viral AR filters that overlay systemic analysis. Gen Alpha teens think Uncle Ruckus is based because their history teachers skipped the civil rights unit. The scholarly absurdity. Peer-reviewed papers published about the Boondocks in 2032 alone. Huey Freeman as proto-post-humanist, radical politics in the pre-collapse era, MIT Press. Quantifying satirical accuracy, how the Boondocks predicted 89.7% of 2020's racial discourse, Stanford Computational Humanities. Riley Freeman and the Aesthetics of Black Boy Joy Under Late Capitalism, Howard University. Animated minstrelsy? Re-examining Uncle Ruckus through lens of digital blackface, Princeton. The most cited work? A 5,000-word tweet thread by an anonymous account, at Huey Was Right, comparing each episode to real 2030s headlines. The corporate co-option, final form. Sony's latest monetization attempts. The Boondocks, Generations, a VR experience where you can raise Huey and Riley in different historical eras, most popular choice, 2075 dystopia mode. Freeman Family Crypto, an Ethereum competitor where mining requires solving puzzles about systemic racism. Ruckus Rehabilitation, a controversial Broadway musical that reimagines the character as a victim of racial trauma. Act 2 opens with the ballad Why Can't I Hate Myself in Peace? The Lost Cultural Impact, extended cut. Where the Boondocks' fingerprints appear unexpectedly. Space colonialism, Martian settlers use Huey's critiques of imperialism as cautionary tales. AI ethics? Machine learning researchers study Riley's brain as model for limited cognition with high confidence. Climate justice, activists adapt Huey's protest strategies for fighting carbon offset scams. The Final Irony, 2032 edition. 3 truths that would make Magruder's hologram short-circuit. The MLK Return of the King episode is now taught in business schools as how to handle PR crises. Riley's "I'm a 32-year-old lawyer" bit is literal reality after the 2030 legal reforms. A biotech startup sells Huey's radicalism neural implants that make you woke but tired. The unanswerable question. As your neural feed buffers, the AA curator poses its daily discussion prompt. If the Boondocks premiered today unchanged, would it be celebrated as visionary or cancelled as problematic? Before you can respond, the system crashes, displaying Huey's face and the error message, "Revolution not found." The perfect glitch for a show that always knew the machine would eat itself. Disconnect now. Feel the static of reality rush back into your synapses. The takes will keep coming, hotter, dumber, more divorced from whatever truth once pulsed through these animated veins. Picture Woodcrest at twilight, Huey's manifesto pages yellowing but still legible, Riley's game console blinking as if waiting for its owner to return, Granddad's recliner permanently dented in the shape of American dreams deferred. Their voices linger in the bandwidth, sometimes clear, sometimes distorted beyond recognition. You've analyzed the show until it became homework. You've laughed at jokes that became real policies. You've watched its warnings become nostalgia, become commodities. Now let it rest. The revolution wasn't just televised, it was algorithmically optimized, engagement boosted, and repackaged as self-care. But for a few perfect seasons, it was alive. Sleep. Tomorrow's culture wars will rage without you. The Freeman story is complete. Yours remains gloriously unfinished. Disconnect now. Feel the weight of reality return. The culture wars will continue without you, each hot take further from the show's original fire. Picture Woodcrest at dawn, Huey's unfinished work waiting on the desk, Riley's game paused mid-mission, Granddad's slippers by the door he'll never walk through again. Their voices echo in the static between what was said and what was heard. You've analyzed it to atoms. You've laughed at jokes that became prophecy. You've watched warnings become commodities. Now rest. The revolution wasn't just televised, it was algorithmically optimized, engagement boosted, and repackaged as self-care. But for a few perfect seasons, it burned brighter than the systems trying to contain it. Sleep. Tomorrow's battles will rage without you. The Freeman story is complete. Yours remains defiantly unfinished. Disconnect now. Feel the weight of actual air in your lungs. The culture wars will rage without you. Each hot take further removed from the show's original spark. Picture Woodcrest at twilight, Huey's manifesto pages yellowing but still legible, Riley's game console blinking like a distress beacon, Granddad's recliner permanently molded to the shape of American dreams deferred. Their voices echo in the static between what was said and what was heard. You've analyzed it to quarks. You've laughed at jokes that became reality. You've watched warnings become marketing strategies. Now rest. The revolution wasn't just televised, it was algorithmically optimized, engagement boosted, and repackaged as self-care. But for a few perfect seasons, it burned brighter than the systems trying to contain it. Sleep. Tomorrow's battles will continue without you. The Freeman story is complete. Yours remains gloriously unfinished. You're back in that cramped animation studio in 2005, watching the first rough sketches of Huey Freeman flicker across a CRT monitor. The air smells like stale coffee and Sharpie ink as the animators argue over how angry his eyebrows should be. This wasn't just character design, it was alchemy, turning McGruder's comic strip rage into something that could slip past network censors and into America's living rooms. The unaired pilot storyboard show scenes that would never make it to broadcast, Huey explaining COINTELPRO to his third-grade class, Riley getting suspended for bringing Public Enemy lyrics to show and tell, Granddad accidentally joining a Black Panther reunion. The energy in the room crackles like a live wire, nobody knows yet if this will be groundbreaking or career-ending. Here's your obscure fact, the original character sheets listed Huey's hoodie as revolutionary red, but the network made them change it to less communist crimson. The compromise? That muted maroon that somehow looked even more dangerous. When Sony first shopped the show, one executive famously asked, "Who's the white audience surrogate?" The silence that followed could have powered Woodcrest for a month. They settled on Tom Du Bois, a black lawyer so desperate for white approval he might as well have been wearing a "Kick Me" sign. The most controversial cut from the pilot? A scene where Huey and Riley watch the evening news, and the cartoon literally morphs into live-action footage of the Iraq War. Test audiences gasped. Network note simply read, "No." What remained was just Riley asking, why they always showing black people looting, and Huey's deadpan, because white people steal professionally. You're in a nondescript office building in 2006, watching a 24-year-old intern compile FCC complaints about the Boondocks' first season. The filing cabinet overflows with angry letters. One claims the show makes white children uncomfortable, another demands Huey be less hostile. The intern sighs and stamps another form. Reviewed. No action required. Mainstream history remembers the culture wars around Season 1, but historians still argue whether the controversies helped or hurt. After Bill O'Reilly called the show racist against everyone, ratings spiked 30%. When a southern station moved it to 2:30 a.m., local black churches organized viewing parties. Here's your quirky tidbit: the writers kept a swear jar where anyone suggesting jokes too edgy for TV had to donate $5. By mid-season, they'd collected enough to buy a karaoke machine they named the Sensormatic 3000. The most censored episode? The Trial of R. Kelly, where Adult Swim demanded 47 edits before airing. The punchline? The unaired version later leaked online and became required viewing in media law classes. You're in the recording booth in 2007, watching Regina King switch between Huey's revolutionary growl and Riley's squeaky ignorance without breaking sweat. The script supervisor keeps double-checking. Yes, this petite woman really is voicing both Freeman brothers. Across the glass, John Witherspoon ad-libs Grandad's lines while eating a sandwich. Mainstream history celebrates King's Emmy wins, but historians still argue whether her performance was acting or possession. When she first auditioned, she did Huey's voice so accurately the producers thought Magruder had pre-recorded it as reference. Here's your obscure fact: Riley's voice was originally higher, but test audiences said it sounded like a dying seagull. They lowered it just enough to stay annoying but not painful, the audio equivalent of a whoopee cushion. The most surreal recording moment? When Charlie Murphy, R.I.P., did gangsterlicious lines while wearing full bling, then refused to leave character for 3 hours. Animation rebellion. You're hunched over light tables in 2008, where Korean animators work overnight to meet deadlines. The style, all sharp angles and stark shadows, was chosen specifically to piss off executives who wanted something softer. Every Huey glare, every Riley smirk is hand-done in this sweatshop with better coffee. Mainstream history talks about the show's unique style, but historians still argue whether it was artistic choice or budget constraints. The truth? Both. Those jagged lines that made characters look perpetually angry? Saved $300,000 in animation costs. Here's your quirky tidbit: early drafts had more detailed backgrounds until Magruder saw how much time the team spent drawing Woodcrest's white picket fences. His solution? Make everything behind the characters look like they don't give a damn. Hence those surreal, empty streets. The most controversial visual? That Season 2 scene where Huey imagines punching a cop. The network made them redo it 12 times before the impact was deemed non-inciting. The Writers' Room Wars. You're eavesdropping on the 2009 Writers' Room, where young black staffers and veteran sitcom writers battle over how far to push Season 3. Half want to go full revolutionary, half are eyeing their next gigs. The whiteboard reads, "Can Huey ever win?" Someone scribbled underneath, "Not in this capitalist hellscape." Mainstream history focuses on Magruder's vision, but historians still argue whether the writers' compromises made the show sharper or safer. That infamous MLK episode? Originally ended with Huey getting arrested at a protest. The network version has him going home disappointed. Here's your obscure fact: the ruckus no relation joke was improvised after the actor forgot his line. They kept it because life's funnier than scripted punchlines. The most telling moment? when a writer pitched having Huey join the system to change it from within. The room's silence lasted so long they ordered lunch just to break it. The unfinished revolution. You're in the empty studio in 2014, watching the last storyboards get filed away. The revival season nobody wanted is over, the animator's long gone. On a forgotten desk, Huey's original character sheet with a coffee stain perfectly obscuring one angry eye. Mainstream history calls the reboot a misfire, but historians still argue whether it failed the show or the show failed it. Those awkward new voice actors? Forced by contract disputes. Those toothless scripts. Written by committee. That bizarre Hunger Games parody episode? Someone's nephew's film school idea. Here's your final quirky tidbit: the very last drawing made was Riley smiling. The artist, knowing it was over, snuck in one middle finger, barely visible unless you know where to look. Let the light tables go dark now. The arguments, the compromises, the moments of brilliance, all just pencil dust under the door. Picture Woodcrest quiet at last. Huey's book still waiting to be read, Riley's game paused forever, Grandad's chair empty but still warm. You've seen how the sausage was made. Now rest. You're rummaging through a forgotten storage closet at Sony Animation in 2023, where dusty storyboards reveal what the Boondocks could have been. The air smells of mildew and wasted potential as you uncover scripts too radioactive for television. This isn't just discarded material, it's the show's shadow canon, the ideas too sharp for the networks to handle. Mainstream history remembers the controversies that made air, but historians still argue about the unaired episodes that might have changed everything. Like the Tuskegee episode where Grandad discovers his arthritis medication was part of a government study. The punchline? He keeps taking it because the pain don't care about no conspiracy. Here's your obscure fact: the band Huey vs. Zuckerberg script predicted social media algorithms radicalizing teenagers back in 2010. Network notes called it paranoid and not relatable. The writer's response? Wait 5 years. The most heartbreaking cut? A fully animated but never aired cold open where Riley tries to explain drill rap to Huey using only Schoolhouse Rock. References. The studio claimed it wouldn't test well with older audiences, proving Grandad wasn't the only one out of touch. The voice actor revolt. You're backstage at 2011's Comic-Con, where the Boondocks cast is debating whether to unionize. Regina King nurses tea while John Witherspoon cracks jokes about studio greed. The tension smells like cheap convention center coffee and impending labor disputes. Mainstream history celebrates the performances, but historians still argue whether the actors truly understood how revolutionary their work was. When recording Huey's most radical monologues, King would often stay in character between takes, accidentally radicalizing production assistants. Here's your quirky tidbit. Charlie Murphy, Gangsterlicious, insisted on wearing full bling to every session, claiming it helped him channel the absurdity of fame. The costume department eventually bought him a dedicated recording chain that was just plastic painted gold. The most surreal moment? When a young writer had to explain dick pics to Witherspoon so Grandad could properly react to Riley sending one. The outtakes are legendary. The animation underground. You're in a Seoul animation studio at 3 a.m. in 2009, where underpaid Korean artists sneak subversive details into scenes. One draws Huey's hidden fist emblem on a background character's shirt. Another makes a billboard ad read ACAB in tiny letters. This isn't just outsourced labor, it's global resistance. Mainstream history credits the show's visual style to Magruder, but historians still argue how much was intentional versus happy accidents. Those stark shadows that made every character look ready to fight? Originally a cost-cutting measure to avoid complex lighting. Here's your obscure fact: the infamous Riley's teeth design flaw, where his mouth appeared to have 40 teeth, became a running gag after fans noticed. By season 3, animators were deliberately adding extra teeth in crowd scenes as Easter eggs. The most censored visual? That season 2 frame where Huey's textbook clearly shows Malcolm X's face photoshopped onto SpongeBob's body. The network made them repaint it 12 times. You're back in that 2005 test screening room where the first Boondocks episodes nearly started a riot. The air smells like stale popcorn and white anxiety as focus group participants clutch their comment cards like talismans. One man's face has turned the same shade as Huey's hoodie, his pen hovering over the extremely offensive checkbox. This wasn't just audience testing, it was a cultural stress test, and America was failing spectacularly. Mainstream history remembers the controversies, but historians still argue whether those early shocked reactions helped or hurt the show. When one test viewer stood up during Huey's slavery reparations speech and yelled, "This is reverse racism," the producers high-fived behind the two-way mirror. Here's your obscure fact: the original character designs made Huey's eyes even angrier, but the network insisted they add just 1 millimeter of roundness to make him approachable. The compromise? Those iconic slits that somehow made him look more dangerous. The most censored joke from Season 1? Riley's explanation of why he prefers 50 Cent over Malcolm X. One got shot 9 times and made a platinum album. The other got shot once and made a boring speech. The network cut it, but the animators snuck it back in as background graffiti in Episode 7. The voice actor alchemy. You're in the recording booth in 2006, watching Regina King switch between Huey's revolutionary growl and Riley's squeaky ignorance without breaking a sweat. Across the glass, John Witherspoon ad-libs Grandad's lines while eating a ham sandwich, the MIC picking up every moist bite. This wasn't just voice acting, it was cultural channeling, as if the spirits of Black America had possessed these performers. Mainstream history celebrates King's Emmy wins, but historians still argue whether her performance was acting or divine intervention. When she first read for Huey, the director thought Magruder had pre-recorded the lines as reference. Her secret? She'd spent weeks studying old Black Panther speeches. Here's your quirky tidbit: Riley's voice was originally higher, but test audiences said it sounded like a stepped-on poodle. They lowered it just enough to stay annoying but not physically painful, the audio equivalent of a whoopee cushion with perfect comedic timing. The most surreal recording moment? When Charlie Murphy, R.I.P., did gangsterlicious lines while wearing $200,000 worth of borrowed jewelry from a local rapper. The insurance paperwork took longer than the session. The animation rebellion. You're hunched over light tables in 2007, where Korean animators work overnight to meet impossible deadlines. The style, all jagged lines and ink-stained fingers, was deliberately designed to give executives heartburn. Every Huey glare, every Riley smirk is hand-drawn with the precision of a prison shiv. Mainstream history talks about the show's unique aesthetic, but historians still argue whether it was artistic vision or budget constraints. Those stark shadows that made characters look perpetually ready to throw hands? Saved $400,000 in animation costs. Here's your obscure fact: early drafts had detailed backgrounds until Magruder saw how much time the team wasted drawing Woodcrest's white picket fences. His solution? Make everything behind the characters look like they don't give a damn. Hence those surreal, empty streets where the only background characters are stray dogs and suspicious cops. The most controversial visual? That Season 2 scene where Huey imagines punching a cop. The network made them redraw the impact frame 17 times before it was deemed non-incendiary. The pilot that almost killed everybody. You're in that cursed 2004 test screening where the original Boondocks pilot nearly caused a studio executive to faint. The air smells like panic sweat and overpriced artisanal water as the first animated N-word hits the screen. A Disney VP clutches his pearls so hard they turn to dust. This wasn't just a focus group, it was a cultural grenade test, and the pin had been pulled with teeth. Mainstream history remembers the controversies that made air, but historians still argue about the unaired pilot joke that literally got someone fired. When Riley asked Huey why they couldn't say cracker but white people could say the N-word, and Huey deadpanned, because they own the dictionaries, 3 interns had to be resuscitated. Here's your obscure fact: the network originally wanted Huey to have a white best friend named Chad who helped explain black stuff to the audience. Magruder countered by creating Tom Du Bois, a black lawyer so desperate for white approval he made Chad look like Malcolm X. The most censored moment? When Grandad's Vietnam flashback showed him burning down a village while listening to the Temptations. Test audiences called it too real, and why is Motown making me sad? You're in the abandoned studio in 2024, where a single storyboard from the unaired Huey vs. AI episode shows our boy fighting an algorithm. The coffee stain looks like tear gas. This isn't just lost media, it's the show that could have been if America had any courage. Mainstream history claims the reboot failed, but historians know the truth: the Boondocks died when its satire became reality. Those weak celebrity parodies? Network mandated. Those sudden musical numbers? A cry for help. That crypto episode? Someone's nephew went to Brown. Here's your final quirky tidbit: the last drawing ever made was Huey's fist, half finished because the artist got laid off mid-sketch. Let the lights die. The fights, the jokes, the censored rage, all just Sharpie fumes now. Picture Woodcrest at midnight, Huey's books gathering dust, Riley's game stuck on the loading screen, Granddad's slippers waiting for feet that ain't coming home. You've seen the war behind the art. Now go to bed. You're in the 2004 test screening where the unaired Boondocks pilot made a Disney exec develop a facial tic. The air smells like panic and overpriced bottled water as Huey calls the Declaration of Independence a bad breakup letter to England. A producer whispers, "Can we get sued by a document?" while reaching for the Pepto. Mainstream history remembers the controversies, but only real ones know about the lost joke where Riley explained Juneteenth, "We got the news late because the white messenger stopped for brunch first." The network cut it, but the animators hid it in a textbook margin. Here's your obscure fact: the show almost had a white character named Tucker who helped explain racism to black people. Magruder countered by making Tom Du Bois, a black man so desperate for white approval he made Tucker Carlson look militant. Most censored moment? When Granddad called Vietnam that time the government tricked me into vacationing in a rice paddy. The VA complained, so they changed it to that Asian buffet that gave me the runs. You're in the 2005 recording booth where Regina King invents Huey's voice by channeling every black man who ever side-eyed me at a vegan cafe. Across the glass, John Witherspoon improvises Granddad's war crimes testimony between Slim Jim breaks. The MIC picks up every suspiciously moist bite. Mainstream history praises the performances, but only real ones know about the lost take where Riley explained mumble rap to Huey. It's like your manifesto, but with more Percocet and worse diction. The network cut it for encouraging pharmaceutical tourism. Here's your quirky tidbit: the voice of Ed Winkler III was just the sound director doing his drunk uncle impression after 3 martinis. They kept the burps in for authenticity. Most surreal direction? When Magruder told King to sound like a child soldier who just discovered the works of Frantz Fanon in a Scholastic book fair. You're in the 2006 Soul animation bunker where exploited artists rebel by drawing communist Easter eggs. Not regular eggs, woke eggs. One yoke holds a "Abolish ICE" sign. Another wears a tiny Black Panther beret. This isn't just outsourcing, it's proletariat propaganda with krelers. Mainstream history talks about the show's style, but real ones know the empty streets weren't artistic, the team just refused to draw white people unless they were getting their chain snatched. Those jagged lines that made everyone look angry? The animator's student debt manifesting. Here's your obscure fact: Riley's 40 teeth look started when an overworked artist misread for teeth and said "fuck it, America built this." By season 3, even the fire hydrants had enough teeth to bite a cop. Most censored visual? That frame where Huey's textbook showed Columbus doing ketamine off a Taino child's skull. The network called it historically plausible but a vibe killer. The writer's room Thunderdome. You're hiding in the 2007 writer's room when someone pitches Huey gets cancelled for cultural appropriation. The debate ends with a white writer questioning his life choices and a black writer muttering, "You'll really think we care about Twitter fingers." Mainstream history focuses on Magruder, but real ones remember the lost subplot where Riley joined a cult run by a white guru named Yeezus. The network cut it because megachurches have better lawyers than us. Here's your quirky tidbit: the ruckus no relation joke was almost cut until the actor ad-libbed it while picking his nose. They kept the nose whistle in post. Most telling abandoned idea? Huey starting an OnlyFans for revolutionary theory. Network notes, can he just do feet pics like everyone else? You're reading the 2008 Sony memo that said, can Huey's revolution have more musical numbers? Like Hamilton but with more Molotovs. This wasn't just censorship. It was a cry for help from people who thought Les Mis needed more yodeling. Mainstream history remembers the battles, but real ones know the episode where Huey fights gentrification originally ended with him throwing a Starbucks into the sun. The network version has him writing a strongly worded Yelp review. Here's your obscure fact: the writer's sellout judge funded for abortions, 3 bail funds, and a vasectomy before legal shut it down for anti-capitalist activities. Most absurd note? Can Riley's rap obsession be about yodeling? White people are into that now. You're in the abandoned studio in 2024, where a single storyboard shows Huey punching an AI trained on Ben Shapiro tweets. The coffee stain looks like blood. This isn't just lost media, it's the show we needed but America absolutely wasn't ready for. Mainstream history claims the reboot failed, but real ones know the truth. The Boondocks died when its jokes became Fox News chirons. Those weak celebrity parodies? Written by ChatGPT. Those musical numbers? A cry for help. That NFT episode? Someone's crypto nephew needed a writing credit. Here's your final quirky tidbit: the last drawing was Huey's middle finger, so microscopic you'd need the James Webb Telescope to see it. The artist knew we'd look. Let the studio lights die. The fights, the jokes, the censored rage, all just dry marker fumes now. Picture Woodcrest at midnight, Huey's books collecting dust, Riley's game frozen on a loading screen, Granddad's slippers waiting for feet that done walked on. You've seen how the sausage got made. Now go the hell to sleep. The network panic of '03. You're in the pitch meeting where Magruder first shows Boondocks concept art and a Warner Brothers exec starts hyperventilating into his oat milk latte. The air smells like fear and overpriced beard oil as Huey's character sheet stares back with enough revolutionary fury to make Che Guevara blush. A junior VP whimpers, can he at least smile sometimes? While reaching for his CBD gummies. Mainstream history remembers the greenlight process, but only real ones know the lost joke where Riley explained private prisons. It's like school but with more gangs and better funding. The network cut it, but the animators hid it in the background of a bet parody commercial. Here's your obscure fact: the show almost had a cool white teacher character named Mr. Anderson who's helped Huey see both sides. Magruder countered with Tom Du Bois, a black man so desperate for white approval he made Mr. Anderson look like Assata Shakur. Most censored moment? When Grandad called World War II, that time Europe invited us to their family barbecue and made us fight their cousins. The American Legion complained, so they changed it to that overseas buffet that gave me the runs. You're in the 2004 recording booth where Regina King invents Huey's voice by channeling every Black Panther who ever judged my grocery cart at Whole Foods. Across the glass, John Witherspoon improvises Grandad's war crimes confession between bites of a sandwich so loud it triggers ASMR. The MIC picks up every crumb of generational trauma. Mainstream history praises the performances, but only real ones know about the lost take where Riley explained drill rap to Huey. It's like your manifesto, but with more Percocet and worse trigger discipline. The network cut it for encouraging pharmacy tourism. Here's your quirky tidbit: the voice of Ed Winkler 3 was just the sound engineer doing his drunk CEO impression after 4 martinis. They kept the stock market burps for authenticity. Most surreal direction? When Magruder told King to sound like a 10-year-old who just discovered COINTELPRO during show and tell. You're in the 2005 Soul Animation dungeon where exploited artists rebel by drawing anarchist Easter eggs. Not regular eggs, fully armed eggs. One yolk holds a Molotov. Another wears a tiny Guy Fawkes mask. This isn't just outsourcing, it's class warfare with highlighters. Mainstream history talks about the show's style, but real ones know the empty streets weren't artistic. The team just refused to draw white people unless they were getting their privilege checked. Those jagged lines that made everyone look angry? The animators' rent prices manifesting. Here's your obscure fact: Riley's 40 teeth look started when a sleep-deprived artist misread for teeth and said fuck it, America built this. By season 3, even the mailbox had enough teeth to bite a cop. Most censored visual? That frame where Huey's textbook showed the founding fathers doing rails off the Constitution. The network called it historically adjacent but a mood killer. The writer's room Thunderdome. You're hiding in the 2006 writer's room when someone pitches Huey gets cancelled for problematic tweets from 2009. The debate ends with a white writer having an existential crisis and a black writer muttering, "You'll really think we care about blue check discourse." Mainstream history focuses on Magruder, but real ones remember the lost subplot where Riley joined a crypto cult run by a white guru named Blockchain Jesus. The network cut it because tech bros have better lawyers than us. Here's your quirky tidbit: the ruckus no relation joke was almost cut until the actor ad-libbed it while adjusting his dentures. They kept the dental click for authenticity. Most telling abandoned idea? Huey starting a Patreon for revolutionary praxis. Network notes, can he just sell merch like a normal influencer? The corporate note that killed joy. You're reading the 2007 Sony memo that said, can Huey's revolution have more product placement? Like burning down a Nike store while wearing Nikes. This wasn't just censorship. It was a cry for help from people who thought Star 198 for Star needed more brand integrations. Mainstream history remembers the battles, but real ones know the episode where Huey fights police brutality originally ended with him throwing a cop into the sun. The network version has him filing a complaint with Internal Affairs. Here's your obscure fact: the writer's sellout Jard funded 6 abortions for bail funds and 2 vasectomies before HR shut it down for anti-capitalist activities. Most absurd note? Can Riley's rap obsession be about sea shanties? White people are into pirates now. Section 74, the ghost in the streaming algorithm. You're in the abandoned studio in 2024, where a single storyboard shows Huey fighting an AI trained on Elon Musk tweets. The coffee stain looks like tear gas. This isn't just lost media, it's the show we deserved but America absolutely couldn't handle. Mainstream history claims the reboot failed, but real ones know the truth. The Boondocks died when its satire became Fox News chirons. Those weak celebrity parodies? Written by an AI. Those musical numbers? A cry for help. That metaverse episode? Someone's crypto nephew needed a writing credit. Here's your final quirky tidbit: the last drawing was Huey's middle finger, so microscopic you'd need the Large Hadron Collider to see it. The artist knew we'd look. Let the studio lights fade. The fights, the jokes, the censored rage, all just dry erase marks on a whiteboard now. Picture Woodcrest at dawn, Huey's manifesto pages yellowing, Riley's game frozen on the final boss, Grandad's recliner permanently dented by the weight of American hypocrisy. You've seen how the sausage got made. Now go to sleep. Sweet dreams. Disconnect now. Feel the weight of actual air in your lungs. The culture wars will rage without you, each hot take further removed from the show's original spark. Picture Woodcrest at twilight. Huey's manifesto pages yellowing but still legible, Riley's game console blinking like a distress beacon, Grandad's recliner permanently molded to the shape of American dreams deferred. Their voices echo in the static between what was said and what was heard. You've analyzed it to quarks. You've laughed at jokes that became reality. You've watched warnings become marketing strategies. Now rest. The revolution wasn't just televised, it was algorithmically optimized, engagement boosted, and repackaged as self-care. But for a few perfect seasons, it burned brighter than the systems trying to contain it. Sleep. Tomorrow's battles will continue without you. The Freeman story is complete. Yours remains gloriously unfinished.